Settle in. Let your body find the position it wants to be in, and if it hasn't found it yet, give it a moment. Shift if you need to. There is no rush here. There is no place you need to be except exactly where you are. Take a slow breath in through your nose. Hold it gently, just for a moment, and then let it go, all the way out, longer than you think, until your shoulders drop and your chest softens, and the day that has been sitting on top of you begins, at last, to lift. Good. Again. In, slowly, and out. You are here. That is enough. Close your eyes or let them rest soft and unfocused on whatever is in front of you. Either way, I want you to imagine that you have been walking. Not far and not in a hurry. Just walking, the way you sometimes walk when the evening is right and there is nowhere particular to be. Through open meadow. The sky above you is the color it goes just after the sun has finished setting. Not dark yet, but no longer gold. A kind of pale, luminous gray, like the inside of a shell, like the last few minutes before the world goes to sleep. The grass around your feet is long and soft. It bends as you pass through it, and it smells of late summer, warm earth and green things, and somewhere nearby, though you can't quite see it, water. A stream, perhaps, just beyond the low rise to your left. You can hear it, very faintly, if you listen. That small, continuous, unconcerned sound of water moving over stones. It has been doing that all day, all year, all century. It will go on long after tonight, and somehow that is comforting. You walk slowly. There is no path here, not exactly, just a natural way through the meadow, a gentle parting in the grass that seems to have been made by many careful feet over many quiet years. You follow it without thinking. Your body knows the way. Ahead of you, the meadow ends. You can see where it happens, the place where the open land gives way to something older and more gathered. Trees, tall and dark and patient, beginning to press close together. Not a wall, not a warning. Just the beginning of the wood, the way it stands at the edge of a meadow at dusk, which is the same way it has always stood and always will. And there, at that edge, right where the last of the meadow grass meets the first of the old roots, there is a light, small and warm and amber, a window glowing from within. And as you walk closer, the rest of the building resolves itself out of the blue-gray air. A small house, low-roofed and mossy, with a chimney of rough stone from which a thin curl of smoke rises and drifts sideways in the evening air, unhurried, like a thought arriving slowly. The roof is thick with something growing, lichen, moss, small creeping plants that have been there long enough to become part of the structure. The walls are pale stone, soft-edged, covered in places with ivy that has gone slightly bronze at the tips now that the nights are cooler. There's a path from where you stand to the front door. Stone slabs set into the moss and the clover, each one worn smooth in the center from years and years of careful feet. And along either side of the path, small lanterns have been placed on low hooks driven into the earth, each one burning, each one still in the windless evening, each one making its small amber contribution to the soft light of this place. You walk the path slowly. The lanterns are warm on your face as you pass them. The smell of wood smoke is stronger now, and underneath it, yes, something else. Dry and green and warm. Tea. Tea already brewing, as though whoever lives here knew you were coming. You stop before the door. It is an old door, arched at the top with iron fittings gone dark with age. There's a small bunch of dried flowers tucked above the lintel, lavender and something else, pale and feathery, that you don't have a name for. You raise your hand to knock. The door opens before you touch it. Warm light spills out around the figure standing in the doorway. A woman, not old, not young, somewhere in the long, quiet middle of life, with dark eyes and flower on one sleeve, and the particular, unhurried calm of someone who has been expecting you for several hours now, and does not mind at all that it took you this long to arrive. She looks at you the way people look at things they have been waiting for, not with impatience, with recognition. "I thought it might be tonight," she says. Her voice is low and even, like a room that has been warm all day. Her name is Maren. She steps aside and you come in. The room is small and warm and exactly right. That is the first thing you notice, not any particular detail, but the feeling of the whole. The way some rooms are just correctly proportioned for human comfort, as though they were built not from measurements, but from a long knowledge of what people need when they are tired. Low ceiling, thick walls, the sense of the outside world held gently at a distance. The floor is stone, covered in places by rugs washed so many times they have gone soft and pale. Their patterns now just suggestions of themselves, which somehow makes them more beautiful. The walls are cream plaster with small shelves built into them, a row of mismatched cups, each one different, all clearly loved, a stack of books with cracked spines, a small clay pot of dried rosemary, a candle burned nearly to its base, the pooled and reset wax now a small landscape of its own. Above you, from the main beam that runs the length of the ceiling, things are hanging. Bundles of dried herbs tied with rough string. You can pick out lavender, chamomile, something silvery gray, something dark and resinous that you have never seen before, but that smells faintly of forest floor and winter rain. A string of small dried flowers, white and pale yellow. A bundle of what looks like dried grass, very fine, that moves slightly in the warmth rising from the fire. The fire itself is in a hearth that takes up most of one wall. Stone surround, iron grate, a fire that has clearly been burning for several hours and has settled into exactly the right stage, past the bright active phase, into the deep orange and gold phase where it burns steadily without effort, throwing out a heat you can feel on your face and hands from across the room. It breathes. That is the only word for it. In and out, low and slow, the way a sleeping thing breathes. 2 armchairs face the hearth, both of them worn smooth at the arms, both of them the kind of chair that seems to know, the moment you sit down, exactly what shape your tiredness is. Maren gestures to the nearer one, and you sit. She moves to a low table nearby, unhurried, familiar with every inch of this room, setting things down and lifting things up with the ease of someone who has done this 10,000 times. She brings a wooden tray and sets it on the small table between the chairs. On it are 4 small jars sealed with cork, each one a different color, one the pale gold of old straw, one deep green-brown, one the soft gray of a winter morning, one a dusty amber that catches the firelight and holds it. She sits in the opposite chair. She does not rush. She lets you look. Then she reaches forward and lifts the first jar, the pale gold one, and turns it slowly in the light. The contents shift, dry and fine. "This one," she says, "is for people who have been thinking too hard, who have been carrying arguments in their heads, or lists, or worries that have started to feel structural, as though removing them would make something collapse. She pauses. It doesn't taste like much. A little like rain on warm stone. A little like the smell of a library in summer. It takes about 4 minutes, and then the noise gets quieter. Then quieter still. Then you stop noticing it. She sets the jar down, lifts the second, the deep green-brown. This one is older. The leaves come from a plant that only grows on the north side of the wood, where the light is filtered and the ground stays damp all year. It takes a long time to dry properly. The taste is earthy and a little sweet, like forest floor in autumn after the first rain. It's for people who are tired, but not sure they can let go, who keep surfacing, who fall half asleep and then find themselves back in the room. A small pause. It helps with that. The third jar, the gray one. Chamomile, dried pear, and one thing I grow myself, only here, only at the edge. I've never found a name for it in any of the books I have, so I call it by what it does. She looks at the jar for a moment. It's for deep sleep, the kind you go into completely, the kind you rise from slowly, like coming up through warm water, unhurried, still carrying the dream. It's the kindest one. Which one? She asks. You tell her. She nods once, the way she does everything, without surprise, without judgment, as though that was always the right answer, and she simply needed to hear you say it. She uncorks the jar. She measures the leaves into a small clay teapot, round and dark, worn at the handle, with a small silver spoon, careful and unhurried. She carries it to the hearth and pours the water over the leaves slowly, a soft, continuous rush of steam rising into the warm air. The smell of it fills the room almost immediately, whatever you chose. It smells exactly like what you needed. She places the lid on the pot and sits back. A few minutes, she says. Let it come. The tea is in your hands now. She poured it while you watched, lifting the pot carefully with a folded cloth, filling a cup that is wide and low and warm already from sitting near the fire. She handed it to you without ceremony, the way you hand someone something they have always had coming. Warm through the ceramic, warm into your palms, warm into the part of you that has been cold without knowing it. You hadn't realized how cold that part was. You hold the cup with both hands and you breathe in the steam, slow and deep, and you let the smell of it enter you before the taste does. The warmth rises into your face. Something behind your eyes softens just slightly. The room seems to settle an inch or two, the way it does sometimes when you exhale fully after a long time of not quite doing so. You drink slowly. The fire breathes beside you. Outside, through the small round window to your right, the last of the evening light has gone completely now, and the wood is simply dark, a dense, still, settled dark, the kind that comes when night has fully committed to itself. The trees at the edge are faint shapes, darker than the sky behind them. Now and then, very faintly, the sound of wind in branches. But low, unhurried, the wood settling for the night. Maren has her own cup. She holds it the way you hold yours, with both hands close to her chest, as though warmth were something to be kept. For a while she says nothing at all, and the silence between you is entirely comfortable, the way silence is between people who do not need to fill it. Then, after a while, she speaks. The wood wasn't always this quiet in the evenings, she says, not as the beginning of a story exactly, but the way someone says something they have been thinking about for a while, and have decided there is no reason not to say aloud. When I first came here, that was a long time ago now, there used to be more sounds from the trees after dark, not frightening ones, just present, as though the wood were sorting through its day before sleep, the way people do, a kind of low murmuring. You couldn't hear words, but you felt the sense of it. She looks at the window. It still does that sometimes, in the deep winter especially, or after rain. She takes a slow sip of her tea. There was a woman who used to come here every year in autumn. She walked up from the valley, always alone, and she would sit in that chair and drink 3 cups of the gray tea and fall asleep before the second cup was finished. Every year. I'd put a blanket over her, and in the morning she'd wake and say she slept better here than anywhere in the world, and walk back down. A pause. She stopped coming about 6 years ago. I hope she found somewhere else that worked. The fire shifts. A log settles deeper, sending up a brief shower of sparks that rise and disappear. The previous keeper here was a man named Aldous. He had this place 40 years before me. He knew the sound of every tree at the edge, could tell the weather 3 days ahead by the smell of the wood at dusk. She smiles at something in the memory. He also believed that something in the wood appreciated tea. Every night he would set a cup on the window ledge, outside where the stone meets the ivy. Every morning the cup was empty. She glances at the window. I still do it, she says. It seems impolite not to. You drink your tea. The warmth has spread now from your hands to your arms, from your arms into your chest, from your chest downward into the part of your body that holds tension without telling you. The stomach, the hips, the long muscles of the back, all of it softening, slowly, incrementally, the way snow softens in the first hour of a thaw. The cup is lighter in your hands than it was. People come here tired in different ways, Maren says after a while. Some of them are tired in the obvious way. Body tired, eyes tired, haven't slept properly in weeks. That kind is easy. The tea and the fire do most of the work. But some people come tired from carrying things, not physical things. Decisions they can't make, things they said or didn't say, futures they can't see clearly and keep trying to see anyway, until the effort of it becomes its own kind of exhaustion. She pauses. That kind takes longer, but it still works. You just have to stop trying. The tea helps with the trying. She looks at you for a moment. You can put it down, she says, gently. Not a demand, just an observation and an invitation. Whatever you've been carrying, you can set it here, in this room, next to the chair. It will still be there if you want it back in the morning, but you don't have to hold it tonight. Outside, the wood breathes. Inside, the fire breathes back. You let your shoulders drop. You let your hands go loose around the cup. You let something go. The cup is empty. You are not sure exactly when that happened. The last third seemed to go on its own, lifted and drunk in a half-aware way while you were listening, while you were watching the fire, while some part of you was already beginning to drift at the edges. You look at the cup in your hands, and it is empty and warm and very light, and you set it on the table beside you, and the small sound it makes, ceramic on old wood, barely a sound at all, seems to belong entirely to this room, to this night, to this particular kind of quiet. Maren rises slowly. She moves to the far table and dims the lamp there, not all the way, just enough that the room becomes a softer version of itself. The sharp edges go. The shadows move in from the corners, gently, the way shadows do in a room where the fire is the main light, not darkening so much as warming, deepening, making the room feel smaller and safer and more contained. She goes to the window. She stands there for a moment, looking out at the wood. You watch her from the chair, your body heavier now than it was an hour ago, your thoughts slower, arriving one at a time with long spaces between them. "They're settling," she says quietly. Not to you exactly, to herself or to the window or to whatever it is she communicates with when she stands at the window at this hour. You understand, without asking, that she means everything out there. The trees, the creatures in the trees, the things that move at the edges of the wood after dark and leave small signs of themselves. A bent branch, a circle in the moss, a scattering of seeds in a pattern that seems too considered to be accidental. All of it settling in the same direction as you, in the same slow collective movement toward stillness and sleep and the long quiet until morning. She turns from the window. She takes the small cup that has been sitting empty on the sill from some previous pot poured out before you arrived, and she replaces it with a new one. She takes the teapot from beside the fire, where it has been sitting and cooling for the last little while, and she pours what remains into the window cup carefully, right to the brim, and she sets it on the outer sill, on the cold stone where the ivy grows. A small offering, an old habit, something maintained across 40 years and more, across 2 keepers and all the changes between them, because some habits are too careful to abandon. She closes the inner shutter, just enough to keep the cold air out, not enough to block the dark entirely. A thread of night air comes in at the edge anyway, cool and smelling of leaf mold and damp stone, and very faintly of something sweet that has no easy name. She comes back to her chair. She sits. She pulls a blanket from the arm of it across her lap. "The fire will keep for several more hours," she says quietly. "You don't need to watch it. It knows what it's doing." You look at the fire. She is right. It is doing exactly what it has always done, what it was doing before you arrived and what it will do after you fall asleep, burning steadily, adjusting itself, consuming the wood in the slow, patient way of things that have time and do not hurry. The colors in it now are deeper than they were, garnet and amber, and at the base, a blue so dark it is almost not there, present only when you look at it directly and gone again when you look away. Somewhere outside, an owl. One note, long and clear, rising slightly at the end. And then nothing. The silence after it is bigger than the silence before it, the way silences always are after a sound that belongs to the night. The blanket on your lap is heavy in the right way. The chair has conformed to you, or you to it. The distinction has blurred somewhat. Your hands are resting now without effort, loose and open on the armrests. Your breathing has slowed. You know this not because you are paying attention to it, but because you are no longer paying attention to anything very much, and the not paying attention has a quality to it now, a texture that is different from the not paying attention of distraction or avoidance. This is the other kind, the kind that comes when there is simply nothing that requires your attention, when you are for this hour genuinely and completely off duty from yourself. Maren says very softly, "You can stay." It is not quite an offer. It is more like something she is telling you that is already true. The chair is comfortable. The fire will keep. The wood is quiet tonight. There is nowhere you need to go and nothing you need to do, and nobody needs anything from you until morning, and morning is a long way from here. She says it the way she says everything, evenly, without performance, as though these are simply facts she has access to and is passing along. Sleep if you can, she says. I'll be here. The fire breathes, in and out, slow and low and continuous, the same rhythm it has held all evening, the same rhythm it held before you arrived and will hold long after you have gone deep into sleep. You can feel it from here, not hear it so much as sense it, a pulse of warmth arriving at regular intervals, like something alive and unhurried beside you. Your eyes are closed, or they are open and resting so gently on the firelight that the difference is not meaningful. Either way, what you see is the same, warm amber, the soft movement of light that is the particular movement of firelight, not the sharp flicker of a candle, not the static glow of a lamp, but something slower and more considered, something that seems to think as it moves. The room has gone very quiet. The wood outside has gone very quiet. It is the kind of quiet that arrives when the night has fully committed, when all the creatures that were going to settle have settled, when the last movement in the trees has stilled. There is no wind now. The lanterns on the path outside will be burning steadily, their small flames perfectly upright, undisturbed. The stone path will be cool and damp with the night air. The ivy on the wall will be still. The cup on the window ledge will be sitting there in the dark, on the cold stone, waiting for whatever comes to it before morning. But you do not need to think about any of that. You are inside. You are warm. The blanket across you is heavy in the way that good blankets are heavy, not burdensome, but grounding. An extra layer of gravity. A gentle confirmation that you are here, in this chair, in this room, and that the world outside can look after itself for a while. Your body is very heavy now, not in an uncomfortable way, in the way bodies go heavy when they finally stop working, when all the small, effortful things they have been doing all day, holding themselves upright, bracing for things, carrying the quiet tension of being in the world and managing everything that being in the world requires, when all of that slowly, incrementally releases. You can feel it happening in layers. First the shoulders, then the arms, then the long muscles down either side of your spine, which have been holding more than you knew, loosening now like ropes going slack in warm water. Your breath is slow. It was slow before you noticed it. It will still be slow after you stop noticing it. The smell of the tea is still in the air. Faint now, chamomile, dried pear, the unnamed thing that grows at the edge of the wood, and whose name, Maren said, is what it does. Whatever it does, it is doing it gently and thoroughly and all the way. She is still in her chair across the fire from you. You know this without looking. The room still holds her presence, that particular quality of quiet that a room has when someone calm is in it, someone who does not need anything from you and does not require your attention and is simply steadily there. It is one of the rarest kinds of company, and it is exactly what you needed without knowing you needed it. The fire settles. A small sound, a shift of weight, of ash, of wood becoming something more fundamental than wood. The light adjusts, marginally briefly, and then steadies again. The dark outside the window is complete now, deep and soft and without edge. The kind of dark that is not the absence of something but a presence in itself, old and patient and full of sleep, the way the dark always is when you stop being afraid of it, when you remember that this is what the night is for. This is what it has always been for. You are in a warm room. There is a fire. Someone kind is nearby. The wood is breathing. You have had good tea. Nothing is required of you. Let the last of your thoughts arrive and pass through and go. You don't need to follow them. You don't need to examine them. You can let them move through like weather, like the smoke from the chimney outside that rises and drifts and becomes part of the air and is gone. Let them go. Let everything go. Maren's voice, one last time, barely above a breath. There you are. The fire breathes, the wood breathes, you breathe, the tea house holds. Sleep now. You are safe here, and the night is long, and there is nothing, nothing at all, that needs you until morning. Sleep.